Well, 80, Ringo Starr 80. Now, if you looked at the title of this video and you saw Ringo Starr 80, I hope I didn't think it was a Dorothy Stratton movie. You know, that, if you don't know
Starter.
what I'm talking about there, Star 80. Ringo Starr 80. Ringo Starr's birthday is July 7th. He was born in 1940, so that makes him 80. So we're celebrating Ringo Starr's 80th birthday, and I have the fabulous David with me, co-author of the Beatles England, that we wrote together way back all those years ago. That's available in the gift shop. Not really, but
The link below, right?
yeah, see a link below. It's, inbox me. $20 shipped. Anyway,
Happy. Hard to believe a Beatle is 80 years old.
80 years
There's
old.
something about 80, It's like, wow.
80. Yeah. Oh my God.
And I hope I look that good when I'm 80.
Well, you need to stop drinking and be a vegetarian. There you go. Ain't gonna happen in this household. So we're gonna just showcase Ringo's discography. We're gonna show records and CDs and some 45 picture sleeves. I'm gonna just show a couple of books, the Genesis books, just really quickly, just to give you a little view. Maybe I'll do that in the middle. We'll take a little mid break and do the book thing. And that's pretty much it. Now, look, we're always gonna forget something. We might forget something, and by all means, write your comments down, write any corrections down, because we screw up like everyone else, although we're close to perfect. But Ringo gets the short shift usually, so we're devoting this entire hour or so, whatever long it takes, to Ringo.
I'll be a little story. Years ago, Apple was suing the producers of the Beatlemania play for trademark infringement. And I was actually hired by the Beatlemania people as an expert witness because we had written a book. And they wanted me to go over their catalog, or what the Beatles were doing since they broke up. And the attorneys pretty much said Ringo didn't have a solo career. And I had to point it out. And a lot of casual fans don't realize that really in the 70s was probably one of the most successful of the four Beatles. He had 10 consecutive top 10 hits, 2 were #1 hit albums. So
it's amazing that Ringo had like the most top 10s initially. Obviously George Harrison did pretty well. I mean, they all did well, but yeah, John even said, "Wow, Ringo's selling more records than I am."
I was also listening to a lot of Ringo and getting ready for this show, comparing the four Beatles. Ringo was really the most rockin' of the four Beatles. I mean,
Yeah.
Ringo's albums are heavy rock and roll. And
Right. I'm going to start out just going through. Let's go through the 45s really fast. Now, I'm not going to mix them in chronological order, because if we do that, we'll miss some. So I'm just going to go through them. David will comment as need be. This is not every 45, but this is most of the picture sleeves I have, with a few others. And we might make a few comments and just kind of tell you what they're about. So starting out, and again, his first solo album, I don't have a picture sleeve. I don't think there was a
I don't think there was a single from it.
No, there was a single. But we got
Cuckoo's
the Blues.
And what's the B-side? Coochie Coochie, right? Yeah, good B-side. Really good B-side.
Great. And we'll talk when we talk about the album. Pete Drake bringing Ringo into Nashville to do this country album. David and I both agree that it's time for Ringo to do a full-on country record, either in Nashville or Austin, with some real country or all country musicians. None of this, songs about Liverpool again. And then, of course, one of his great singles, "It Don't Come Easy."
Don't Come Easy.
Anything you want to say about that?
Great single. It's unsure actually who wrote it. It's credited to Richard Starkey, but heavy influence by George Harrison. Maybe even most of it by George Harrison. There's a bootleg circulated of George's guide vocal. So it's the same backing, but it's George on lead vocals.
Right.
And the mix of the Hare Krishna, which got mixed out of the Ringo's versions, is quite popular.
And of course, Ringo, even to this day, up to his last friggin' record, likes to sing about the old days. The
He
old days.
closed this.
So we got
Great interesting B-side too. Early 1970. One of the records that comments on the Beatles. So there's 4 verses. Paul is, I wonder if he's going to play with me. John, I know he's going to play with me. And George, he's always in town playing with me.
yeah.
Early 1970s.
Oh, not a great song, but just
Well,
it was good.
It
It was good in that time, in that early, post Beatle break or after the Beatle breakup. Ringo singing so closely about the Fabs.
Play the piano if it's
Now, this is one of my, aside from, well, actually, Ringo to me had some of the best singles early on, especially. This is one of my favorite. This rocks. The drumming on this, the mood of this, Back Off Boogaloo.
We were talking just before we started. The original had a blue Apple label. There's a green.
And it backs with Blind Man.
You ever see that movie, Blind Man?
I did, actually.
You got through it.
Well, how many? Yeah, of course. One of his greatest songs, "Photograph,"
Easily.
produced by George Harrison, right? Oh, Richard Harrison. I'm sorry, produced by Richard Harrison. I'm sorry, co-written with George Harrison, produced by Richard Perry. Now, the politically correct song of the day. You're 16.
Me too.
Yeah, Ringo was 30 in his 30s by the time he wrote this. So, 32.
No, he didn't write that. That's a cover of an old.
I mean, I'm saying, I know it's a cover of a early 60s song, but he records it when he's
Johnny Burnett, right?
So, 32 divided by 2 is 16. So, as a Woody Allen writes in Annie Hall, what Tony says, Max, twins, Max, imagine the mathematical possibilities. So 16-year-olds equals 32. We're going to get a lot of comments for that.
On that track, Paul plays what's called the mouth sax, where he was just.
Another cover, and this is going to a second rock and roll record, Goodnight Vienna.
John Lennon arranged that.
There you go. And the science fiction connection, Klaatu Verada Nikto, from The Day the Earth Stood Still, a Mikey Rennie film with Gort the Robot. It was on the roof of the Capitol Tower promoting it. It's all down to Goodnight Vienna.
Another John song.
Goodnight Vienna and Ooh Wee. I love Goodnight Vienna. I like that song. I think it's a really interesting song. You didn't hear people talk about the second album much. I know it's not a second, it's his 4th album, but in terms of the rock and roll thing.
As opposed to Ringo the 4th.
Exactly. Now, this is not a Ringo single, but I show it. It's from the fantastic movie that's better than Citizen Kane, Daybreak, Harry Nilsson, and there's Ringo as Merlin, or a magician of some sort.
Son of Dracula is the movie, right?
Yeah, on Apple Records. I didn't bring that soundtrack. I should have pulled it, but I didn't.
So it's on Rapple Records, RCA and Apple.
Oh, that's right. I brought this only because Heart on My Sleeve and its Portrait Records after Apple, and which is a division of Columbia, and it's a double A-side mono stereo, Heart on My Sleeve, the Gallagher and Lyle song. I think one of my a later single in the 80s that I really liked, I guess 81, 82 or something, and it's racked my brain.
George.
Yeah, another. I mean, George and Ringo worked really well together. I think it's best things. Just an la-di-da, la-di-da.
I like that. La-di-da is one of my favorites, actually. Paul plays bass in that.
Vertical Man. And then lastly, on Capitol Records, this is kind of I don't want to say novelty, but interesting. Buck Owens and Ringo Starr together singing Act Naturally. If you know the Beatles version, that was originally a Buck Owens song. So it's great to hear, Ringo was the guy who was really into country music.
Watch out.
Pardon me?
the vinyl community is about to be upset because the record's going to fall.
Okay, so let's jump into the records, David. Why don't you start? I'll hold it up. But
First album. This is actually the first solo Beatle album, if you don't count, of actual songs. If you don't count Family Way or Wonderwall. Ringo doing standards. Really nice record. The cover is Empress Pub in Liverpool, and Ringo grew up just down the street there to the right. And that's where his home was until he moved to London, actually. Good album, I think.
what's great about this album too, he used a lot of different arrangers. George Martin basically produced it, but their songs, Sentimental Journey, arranged by Richard Perry. He's got Chico O'Farrill, sort of the jazz pop producer. Maurice Gibb of the Bee Gees arranges a song. Klaus Vormann, Paul McCartney does Stardust. Oliver Nelson, the great jazz composer, sort of semi-big band who actually ended up doing a lot of soundtracks and movie and TV themes. I'm thinking like maybe The Fugitive, those type of Hollywood TV things. George Martin, Quincy Jones, Elmer Bernstein, and others. So I liked this record when it came out. I think the Beatle audience was a little unsure, like what the hell is this? Think about all the artists that came later that started doing song books, and Harry Nilsson was one of the first in this, 74, 75.
Rod Stewart, Linda Ronstadt,
everyone.
Dylan, of course. That album was kind of my introduction to the Great American Songbook.
Yeah.
I never paid attention to Sinatra and this kind of stuff prior to that.
Then Pete Drake tells Ringo, come to Nashville for a couple of days. We did Nashville Skyline in 2 days. Come on. And they went for 2 days. And this is really good. That's why I said.
One of my favorites.
Yeah. This is a UK pressing for you.
Jordanaires are on that. DJ Fontana from Elvis's band is one of the drummers. Charlie Daniels.
Yeah, exactly. Charlie McCoy.
Yeah.
Charlie Daniels is on here, who just died.
He just died.
He died today.
Yesterday.
Yesterday, before.
So today, we're taping this on the 6th.
Yeah, we're taping this on the 6th. Ringo's birthday is July 7th, his 80th birthday. This is 2/20/2020. And Charlie Daniels, R.I.P. There's a Beatle connection. There's always a Beatle connection. And we might as well, it's not really, there's probably a Beatle connection we haven't figured out. Ennio Morricone died as well, the great Italian composer. The Good, Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah. That was my rendition of it. The classic. Really set up the concept of A Little Help with My Friends. It's full of guest appearances by all sorts of people. You got the Klaus Vormann book there.
Plus, this is a rare promo from the retail. I was in retail when this came out.
What's my name?
Ringo, his little cherub friend.
I was never a fan of the perm era when he had the curly hair.
No. I mean, this had all the hits. Had 3 out of the 4 Beatles appear on it. Although I think it's I'm the Greatest has 3 of the 4 Beatles on one song, right?
All 4 Beatles are on this, not together, but all 4 Beatles
are on the album, but not on one song. I remember when this came out on a Saturday night, Tom Donahue, KSAN Radio, who was the premier DJ in San Francisco for alternate radio. By then it wasn't so alternate, but it was FM, quote, underground, that was above ground. On a Saturday night, I was in North Beach. We were going to the Times Theater, this old movie theater that did retrospect. And we were listening because there was all these rumors. They were talking on the air about where the Beatles were in the studio in LA, and it looks like they're going to, it was the talk of a reunion. And this is 1973. So they were talking about a possible reunion, and what it was this. And of course, they weren't in the studio all at the same time. But like most of the band is on here. Sunshine Life for Me is a great, great song. Of course, Harry Nilsson, David Bromberg, Lon Van Eaton, who you know, the Beatles championed a little bit. Tom Scott, Jack Nitzsche. I mean, who you know, this was the place to be.
Classic record.
Yeah, probably more booze, pot, and cocaine went through these studios. But this was a good time for Richard Perry as a producer. He was producing Ringo, he was producing Harry Nilsson. I mean, you know, he had a real run there, and obviously,
Barbra Streisand, he went on to produce. He produced Tiny Tim's first album.
yeah, exactly. You know, came with this great book, illustrations by Klaus Vormann, who's on here. But great book, Ringo Starr. What's my name?
Follow-up album. I think more of the same. A Good Night Vienna. Another lot of hits on it. I think one of the ironic ones, he had a hit with the Hoyt Axton song, the No No song, which is an anti-drug song. But in that era, with you got Ringo hanging out with Harry Nilsson and Keith Moon and John Lennon in Los Angeles.
The Lost Weekend.
And,
right? Yeah.
I think they were all sampling quite a bit during that time.
There's some great songs on here too, great covers. I mean, but they weren't real famous covers. Like a song called "Husbands and Wives," which is a Roger Miller song. Roger Miller, we all know from "Trailer for Sale or Rent," "Room to Let," 50 Cent, "King of the Road." Acapella, which is a song by Alan Toussaint, a song I think written for Ringo by Bernie Taupin and Elton John. Snookeroo.
Ooh-wee, right?
Snookeroo.
Ooh-wee is a song, right?
Snookeroo.
Snookeroo, you're right.
Snookeroo. First time I'm reading it right here.
Well, I'm not. And then Good Night Vienna by John Lennon.
And Good Night Vienna opens and closes. There's a yeah, the Hoyt Axton song. Ringo actually writes a song called "Call Me," but "Good Night Vienna" opens and closes. It's just a great. This is a really good record. This is a good album. So, and then after this, it was all downhill. The drugs took effect.
Well, he left. Apple closed down.
That's right.
Pretty good, decent best of Blast from Your Past. I don't know if you have that you can show. Which was the last Apple album released before the 20-year. What do you? Oh,
no, it's.
I got it. Like last Apple album before the close down.
I want to give the viewers here their entertainment bang for their buck. I mean, anybody can just show friggin' records and talk about them. I'm getting comments now like, "You're no expert about Linda Ronstadt." I said something about Linda Ronstadt record that wasn't one of my favorites. "You're no expert." I never said I'm an expert. I'm just showing my fucking record collection.
Good collection.
Yeah, it is a good collection. It is nice. Here we go. Blast for Your
Past. Red Apple label on it.
And it's what? Oh yeah, people like to see labels on here. Look at that! Isn't that delicious?
With the little green stem, yeah. and the full apple on both sides, I believe.
Exactly.
Right. Yep.
Right.
There you go.
And what's great about this, because it collects all those singles that we talked about early on that weren't on an album, including early 1970. But yeah, Buku's the Blues. So it's good they took one from that record. They didn't take anything from the big band record, but it's still a nice comp. It's been replaced since. There's better comps now on CD, but this is a nice comp. Now, I like this record. He goes to Atlantic Records.
Yeah, Atlantic Records, and that was the first one. That is actually a really good record. It keeps going with the formula of Little Help from My Friends. You've got, I think all the Beatles are on it.
Yeah, A Dose of Rock and Roll is a good version of that song, too. And of course, David, tell what this is.
Well, as I said, the greatest hits album was the last Apple Records before it shut down for 2 decades, and so Apple was no more. On the back cover is the front door to 3 Savile Row, which was Apple's headquarters, where their Let It Be rooftop concert was, and you can see it's all covered with graffiti. It's kind of a little statement there.
I like the cover too. The cover photograph is beautiful, and this was produced by
Eric Martin. Produced that.
Right, Eric Martin from Atlantic Records.
One of my. Go ahead.
That's like one of the great
One of my favorite little moments on this record is
spooky weirdness.
is what?
Spooky weirdness.
Well, no, that's not one of my favorite. Cooking in the Kitchen of Love. John Lennon came out of his retirement, the house husband years. So it's the last recording. So John wrote that song, plays piano, and it's a little moment, but there's a break in the song, and then you can hear John saying 3, 4, 5, and the band comes back in. I always like that.
Eric Clapton writes a song.
George has a song. Paul has a song.
No, there's no George song, is there?
I Still Love You is by George Harrison. I don't think George plays on that.
Oh, right.
George was busy doing the Dark Horse stuff, but
Paul writes Pure Gold.
George Harrison song, Pure Gold by Paul. Linda's on that.
Anyway, I like this record. I like Crying. This is a good record. And then Ringo Starr, it was all down.
But that record didn't sell. The Apple albums were all huge hit singles. This one tanked.
1976, punk, things were changing.
Disco, kind of dance groove.
Terrible version of Drowning in the Sea of Love.
Yeah.
This is a cool.
Didn't work.
I like the song Wings, and it's not about what you think it's about.
Yeah, which we're going to talk about in about 10 albums later.
Yeah, he wrote that song with Vinnie Poncier. Him and Vinnie, I think they had a little too much blow going on. This was the alcoholic drug years. He wrote a lot of songs on here, and they're really not great songs. At least, Ringo was writing stuff a little bit. The little he wrote with the Beatles, he kind of got help from,
It's got the one Robert Palmer song on it, isn't it? Robert Palmer?
Could be. Riff Martin produced it again. Not a great album at all.
Kind of that dance disco groove.
Yeah. A lot of the 60s artists had a bad time as the late 70s, early 80s happened. They didn't know how to find themselves. They tried to be followers rather than forward thinking, in my opinion.
And it didn't sell.
And now, this is the record. This is the album that Mazzy loves to hate, and hate he does.
Yeah.
But I got a stamp promo copy, so it's rare.
Ringo was tried. There was a big TV special called Ogner Rats, which got a lot of promotion. It was Ringo's version of Prince and the Pauper. So he plays Ringo Starr, big rock star, and he plays Ogner Rats, which is Ringo Starr backwards, down and out guy. So a lot of the songs were on that. 50 years we've been hating the song Bad Boy. I'm just a bad boy. Yeah, we've been making fun of this record for years. Not good.
Oh my God. Terrible record. Someone's going to tell me they love it. And I don't think Ringo wants to see him with a glass of alcohol anyway in his hand on a cover. He went through, good for Ringo. He's been like sober, for 30 years now or plus. He's a vegetarian, healthy as hell. This was a bad time.
Yep.
Okay.
I don't know, do you want to talk about this one? Scouse the Mouse. It came out same time.
It was an animated.
So this is actually a bootleg. So I don't know if it actually came out on CD. I don't have the vinyl. It was gonna be a cartoon, musical cartoon TV special, but it never got made. There's that. And then, but Ringo sings vocals on about 7 of the songs here. What's that?
It's a bootleg. But
bootleg?
it's kind of like 3, oh, wait a second. Oh.
Surprise.
Okay. Hold on.
Oh, you get 3D cover? Wow. Groovy.
I just want to see a coked out Ringo Starr in 3D.
It's kind of a cute record, actually. I don't know about that thing, but
It's a bootleg.
yeah.
I feel like cosmic vinyl here, Brian. Sorry. Okay.
And what's next? Into the 80s now. Stop and Smell the Roses.
This is the record.
It's, yeah, well.
I mean, it's the single we talked about.
Well, John Lennon gets killed, okay, at the end of December. He was starting to put this album together.
It came out in 81.
81. It's not bad. John wrote 2 songs for this album, which Ringo could not record. He wrote Life Begins at 40 and Nobody Told Me. And he gave Ringo the demo when Ringo visited in late November. But Ringo just couldn't. You have the autograph one?
Yeah, we both, David and I, when our book came out, the Beatles England available to gift.
Harry Nilsson there and Lawrence Huber.
David and I sat in the lobby of the Bonaventure Hotel in Los Angeles for about 2 hours with Harry Nilsson. We were drinking, but he literally went through a bottle of brandy or scotch, an entire bottle. If you know this, I mean, he told great stories. Harry, I'm a big Nilsson fan. We're both big Nilsson fans, and he was there promoting gun control, handgun control, because this was, remember, 2 years after John was killed. But I got this autographed, and also Lawrence Huber.
Yep.
Who was in the Wings.
We were probably standing next to each other.
Yeah, we were hanging out together, and who was in Wings on Back to the Egg, and was with Paul when Wings was when he got busted going to the Japan tour, and that Wings became no more. We digress. But Rack My Brain, I think, is a great single.
This album continues the formula of A Little Help from My Friend. So Rack My Brain.
Your light went out. Did your light down or you're dark?
Yeah. You know what? I think we lost power here.
Well, you're still on, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm laptop. I'm not plugged in. You want to pause for a second?
Yeah. Let me pause, and we'll be right back after this message. We're back, but you didn't even know we left but David's in the light. Anyway, as we said, I don't know what else to say about this record.
Rack My Brain, good song. Paul wrote, did 3 actually. Private Property, Attention. Sure to Fall was a song that was part of the Beatles stage act in the very early years. I think they did it at their Decca audition. So Paul produced a version of that song with Ringo on vocal.
Yeah, and I think this is the first album too that came out after he married Barbara, I believe.
You could be correct.
And he does a cover, a new version of Back Off Boogaloo on here. He closes the album out.
One of 2.
And there's one of the great Harry Nilsson songs on here is called "Drumming Is My Madness."
Lots of producers on that. Paul, George, Harry,
yeah,
Ron Wood does a song. Steve Stills does a song.
Yeah, it doesn't quite. Yeah, like there are 1, 2, 3, 5 producers on it.
Yeah,
I don't like 5.
Yeah. Little Help from My Friends is the concept. Right. Didn't sell though. I mean, he pushed this really hard. There was a lot of promotion to this. Paul and Ringo did these little short videos, I think, with some of the songs.
The cover is designed by John Kosh, who did Let It Be and Abbey Road and worked on all the Linda Ronstadt records, a great designer, British designer, but lived in Los Angeles. So there we go.
So things weren't going well for Ringo. His, one album after the other wasn't selling. So they got dropped by all UK and American record labels.
They wouldn't put this out in America. This came out in Canada.
So yeah, Old Wave, which was produced by his good friend Joe Walsh,
who became his brother-in-law.
But wasn't released in the U.S. or Europe. I think.
RCA,
maybe Germany put it out.
Yeah, and this is RCA Canadian, French Canadian in Ontario. Um,
It's
not a
okay record.
rock and roll record, a little more rockin' because of Joe Walsh. I love the cover.
It kind of sets up the formula he used for all his later albums. A lot of originals in it that he writes with his friends. Um, it's okay. Okay, it was
Yeah.
because it was so hard to come by in the United States. Everybody kind of liked it.
Then I'm going to just show these just because I'm not really showing best of, but there was a best of here, Starstruck on Rhino. Rhino puts out kind of an overview that has, and it
Yeah.
has a couple of Rack My Brain. It takes on all his labels and puts a bunch of songs that you didn't want in the first place all in one place. Oh, come on, we're kidding.
No, it's a good The cover was from an unreleased album, Can't Fight Lightning. Um, Ringo was trying to put together stuff, so that was the cover shot for that. It's a good collection of the post Apple stuff. So
It's got a great cover. I like the cover of the Doug Psalm, She's About a Mover, the Sir Douglas Quintet song. That's kind of a nice, it ends with that. So, okay.
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot of comps and a lot of CD things that we might kind of go through quickly. We're not going to really jump into, but this is probably, I would say, is closest to a comeback album he had.
Absolutely. Well, there was he before that he did he got sober, with alcohol problem, and then started the All Star Band, and he did the first tour with who was on that? Levon Helms, Rick Danko, Clarence Clements, Nils Lofgren, Dr. John.
The thing about, we should just
really
a brief conversation about the Endless or the All-Star Tour. Smart, and I can't remember the gentleman's name who started that and produced it and put it together and kind of created the concept for Ringo. Ringo is not a great lead man, although he's the lovable lad. When he first came to America, he was like a lot of people's favorite Beatle. He was the little conductor on Thomas the Tank Engine, one of the three conductors, and it was smart doing this show with other people. He has his 5 or 6 or 7 hits, and then you get people to do 2 or 3 of their own hits and put together a great band. I've seen about 5 of the shows. He's done, I don't know, 20 tours now or whatever. And I'm always surprised how much I enjoy him. I always think like, oh my God, here we go again, the old. And it's great. It's a great fun night. I brought my son. It was his first time to see a Beatle, and I brought him to see one of the tours, and then I saw him to see Paul McCartney. So my son at least can say he's seen 2 of the Beatles live.
Those shows remind me of, remember the old Tammy show? All these artists come out and they do, they do their hit and off, and then somebody else comes out and does their hit. Great concept.
And there are a series of various CDs that Koch have put out. There's Ringo and his All-Star Band extended tour. There's
a million of them.
This is a nice one if you're into that. It's an anthology. It's 3 discs, and it's got everyone on it from all the years, like Clarence Clemens from the E Street Band, Billy Preston, Rick Danko, Joe Walsh, Nils
John
Lofgren,
Entwistle, I think, is on that.
John Entwistle, Peter Frampton, Dave Edmunds, Felix Cavallari. From the Young Rascals. Boy, he doesn't even tour. Randy Bachman, Burton Cummings, Gary Brooker from Procol Harum, Jack Bruce from Cream, Eric Carmen, Peter Frampton. Anyway.
The requirement to get into the Ringo All-Star Band is you have to come with a hit. You had to have had a hit record that you sang.
I saw him with Sheila E. She had 1 or 2 hits, and she was great. One of them that I really liked, which surprised me, was Greg Lake and Sheila E. Greg Lake from Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and he does like Lucky Man and one other I forgot the other song he did, but it was unbelievable. It was amazing. Really great type band. He always has another drummer, but it's great. And I got to see him when the photo book came out. I'm going to show this as a little shameless promotion here. This is in 2014. when I met Ringo in Las Vegas for his photo book. In fact, this might be a good time for me to show these books really quickly. But before we go, let's finish off this record. Jellyfish is on it.
This is one of my favorite Beatles solo albums, and we did a show a month or so ago, and I actually listed this as my favorite Ringo album. Great comeback, very Beatley. It surprised that it works because it has 4 different producers: Phil Ramone, Don Was, Jeff Lynne, and somebody else.
Peter Asher and Phil Ramone. Yeah. So it's a good sounding record too.
Good sounding record. Ringo co-wrote most of the songs on it. So semi-autobiographical, one of my favorites. And if you don't have it, go out and buy it.
Here's a Genesis break. Genesis book. This is Ringo's photographs. I bought a photograph from the Genesis. Genesis are limited edition books. I won't get into it and pull it out, but Ringo was an amateur photographer, brought his camera on tour all during the early Beatle years to take pictures. Great collection of work. A lot of them are the Beatles. Not everything is the Beatles, but as he toured, as he went around, beautiful collection here. There is a second one put out, Another Day in the Life of Ringo. What's my name? Ringo Starr. And this one has more pictures of Ringo Starr, by Ringo Starr. And then lastly, a really fun book. Some of these have come out in trade editions, so you can buy them cheap. This is a beautiful Genesis box, a postcard from the boys. And these are reproductions of a lot of postcards that he got from various Beatles when, over the years, like John and Yoko would be on the road. And of course, like a Genesis, it's put together like a scrapbook with parts and pieces. And it has reproductions of the actual postcards. So you see the front and back of the various postcards. David, people like to see this shit occasionally. So.
I like to see this shit.
Smells like leather. John is great. I love John's the best because you'd read these things from John, like and he'd put his little pictures on. John likes to do his little doodling and pictures, so it's kind of fun. So, okay, you want to pull the next one while I put this away?
Where are we up to? Oh, all right. So, yeah, time takes time, and then comes the Mark Hudson years. So his next album is called Vertical Man, right? Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, Vertical Man. Produced by Mark Hudson of the Hudson Brothers. Starry Night by Van Gogh.
Yeah, you didn't know Van Gogh painted Ringo.
Road. It's an okay record. What's on that? Nice George song, it's a King of Broken Hearts. George plays a electric slide guitar on that, really nice. Drift Away is a good cover. Give Me the Beat Boys, Free My Soul.
Adobe Gray song. Adobe Gray.
Originally, Steve Tyler did the co-vocal. Also, Alanis Morissette is on that same record. But the label, Steve Tyler's label wouldn't let him use his vocal. So Tom Petty comes in and re-records Steve Tyler's version or parts to that. Paul is on La Di Da, a single. I like the record.
Yeah, Mark Hudson was a good producer. He got the Beatles sound, which with Ringo helps a little bit. I think it helps people. Sometimes we don't want to go back in time and recreate things and all the nostalgia stuff. But Ringo, that's his shtick now, and he's accepted that. And he's not gonna do like David Bowie's last album or something, that kind of artist. He's never gonna be that. He's not going to do even like something like Egypt Station that Paul did. And that's okay. I mean, you know, some people used to say Ringo Starr, the luckiest man in the world, but we haven't really got into the drumming that much of Ringo, but Ringo is an incredible drummer. I do want to show one other thing really quick, if I can dig it out from here, but just one more book. Those of you who are drummers out there, I suggest you buy this book, Ringo Starr, The Beatles Beat. And it's for drummers. It has the music of various songs that Ringo played with the Beatles, the instruments he's used, because his drumming is very, very intricate and very unusual. He's not the flashy Ginger Baker or anybody. I want to just throw this in. Those of you who know jazz, and I've done a lot of jazz videos here on my own and with Jazz Shit Brooks, and there's a famous drummer, Tony Williams, and Tony Williams at 17 he joined Miles Davis and was one of the great quintets with Miles, and did a lot of solo albums. Went back to Blue Note in the mid 80s to mid 90s, and I got to meet Tony several times, and an incredible drummer. So if you know jazz, you know who Tony Williams is. One time I was hanging out with him and a few other people, and I actually he brought up the Beatles because he loves the Beatles. So of course I'm talking to this one of the greatest drummers ever, and I asked him what he thought about Ringo's drumming, because mere mortals like us, a lot of people like to jump on Ringo, and the punchline to the question, who's the best drummer, and what's the punchline?
Ringo isn't even the best drummer in the Beatles or something.
There we go, because Paul,
Absolute nonsense.
Yeah. Anyway, Tony was raving about Ringo's playing, and he cited certain songs, everything from Tomorrow Never Knows to Strawberry Fields Forever to Rain to all these things. Nobody would play the drums on those songs like Ringo did. So, and I liked when he worked with two drummers on his records and became really close friends with Jim Keltner.
If you're into Beatle outtakes and session tapes, Ringo rarely makes an error. You hear other Beatles false starts, they stop and start, rarely because Ringo messed up. He's known as the human metronome. He finds the beat and doesn't lose it. He also plays the song. None of his drum patterns are the same. He's actually coming up with a drum pattern that fits the song. This also has Love Me Do. Speaking of him as a drummer, that was always a sore point for Ringo, because he was, Pete Best gets kicked out and he's hired, and first session to Love Me Do, and George Martin had a session drummer, and it was a sore point for Ringo. Still is. So Ringo put Love Me Do on this to prove he played it.
Okay, I'm not sure if we're going in the right order. I think we are.
Choose Love is next, I think. Well, no. Yeah, sure, why not? Another Mark Hudson record.
Okay. Which is better, Ringo's Christmas album or Bob Dylan's Christmas album?
Ringo's Christmas album, right.
I'm one of the few people that I know that love Bob Dylan's Christmas album.
Yeah, okay, sure. Why not? He did the song from the Beatles' 67 fan club record, Christmas Time Is Here Again, which isn't really a song. It's just this little riff that gets edited into the Beatles piece, but Ringo kind of hammered it into a song. So that's on that. And it's all right.
Okay.
Then where are we at? The more Mark Hudson, Choose Love, I think, is next, right?
Yeah. Do we get, I don't know what order we are here, but.
Choose Love by my notes. This is another, it's all right. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, no, we forgot Ringo Rama.
Did we? All right. Another one. There's, what did I do with it?
My Name, Peace and Love.
Ringo, there's a deluxe version of this, which is a 3-disc set. It is.
Again, Mark Hudson.
There's a DVD on there
These are
and an
pretty
interview.
decent albums, and he was on Koch here, and they weren't big sellers, but they were consistent, and I think they also tied in that they were selling them, and they you know, the whole tours he was doing at the time. So people.
Yeah. There's a nice on Ringo Rama, Never Without You. It's the name of the song, and it's a tribute to George Harrison, who had recently died. Kind of a nice song. Harry Nilsson, or not Harry Nilsson, Willie Nelson does a guest vocal on that. And there's a hidden track on that. It's kind of interesting. At the very end, it's called I Really Love You. There's a little gap. And it's Ringo playing all the instruments. He plays the bass, he plays the keyboards, plays the guitars, singing, he wrote it. So it's all Ringo. So
okay. I'm going to show this just because we talked about Blast from the Past. If you want one Ringo best of this on CD, this is the one to get. I'm surprised these days with the vinyl resurgence, they don't put this on. It's 20 songs, and it's got, you know, obviously the early hits and the later sort of hits.
It's got a DVD on it too, with a lot of the promo films.
It doesn't have Rack My Brain. Oh, it does have Rack My Brain. I'm sorry. This is good. This was on Capitol, so back to Capitol, back to Apple. It's actually an Apple logo on here as well. So I like this record. I like this collection.
Yep.
Okay, where are we going now? Now is where they all start blurring together.
Well, so Mark Hudson, the years comes to a grinding halt. Where's Liverpool 8? You have that?
I got it here.
There it is. So this is the last sort of the Mark Hudson. Ringo was about to go out on tour, and Mark Hudson was in the band. And Mark Hudson, another gig came up, so Mark Hudson dropped out, and that was the end of the Mark. So Ringo and Mark Hudson part their ways. So Ringo, you know, does this, and yeah, you just showed that whole collection of that stuff. They were all interchangeable albums.
Yeah,
really?
in a way, the thing about it is Ringo started doing this thing that some people love. And in fact, when I read on Beatle blogs and stuff, people love Ringo talking about the old days and what it was like in Liverpool. So I guess I'm in the minority here, you know, and I love Ringo, but you know, the whole nostalgia thing, he's kind of, okay, I get it. Liverpool 8 was the area that Ringo grew up. So he's got this.
I mean, the first time he did that, you know, you write about Rory Storm and being in, you know, or the old days in Liverpool. The first time he did that, okay, but it seems to be his thing now. Or he quotes.
This one is a song called, yeah, there's a song called In Liverpool. So he does it the same thing again, cover of Slow Down, Rock Island Line, which is great. I mean, you know.
That's a weird one. This one has Think It Over, Buddy Holly's song. Oh, we talked about earlier. 2 deep cut Ringo songs that he re-recorded. Wings from Ringo the Fourth and Step Lightly from the Ringo album. Oh, why re-record those? I don't know, but whatever. Why not? You have that one? They all have the same cover, more or less. Why? They've actually, it's got a really good track on there with Paul McCartney. What's it called? Walk With You. And Paul does this nice sort of, he kind of shadows in the chorus. You know, Ringo sings a line and Paul is singing it behind him. And it's a really nice track.
And there's a song called The Other Side of Liverpool.
More Liverpool, yeah.
And there's a song it ends with Who's Your Daddy? Who's your daddy? You're 16, you're beautiful in your mind.
These records all have the same cover too. Do you notice that? It's like it's the same thing.
Is this the one next?
This one? What's this one called?
2012?
Paradise.
Did we do 2012 already? We did.
Yeah, we just did.
Okay.
You know, whatever. There's a song called Rory and the Hurricanes.
Rory and the Hurricanes. Let's talk about Liverpool. Back in my day, 1958, Rory Storm and I.
Give More Love? Where's that?
Um, Postcard from Paradise is good because he had his book postcards, you know, of the boys and all that stuff. So self-promotion, which is fine. You know, it's got Benchmont Trent is on it. It's got his LA buddies. What's good about it now, LA, I've been watching a lot of videos recently about Ringo, and he's got his home studio, so the guys come and hang out and they play. And Joe Walsh, as we said earlier, is his brother-in-law, and you got Steve Lukather, and he was working, I think, on an album for him when this whole shutdown happened during the pandemic. And Peter Frampton's on here, Benchmark again from the not the Pretenders, the Tom Petty Heartbreakers. So he's got his little clique, Dave Stewart, who he's worked with over the years occasionally. It's just great. Watch, again, as I said with drumming, there's a bunch of videos on YouTube showing how he plays a certain drums and the way he's, you know, he's a lefty, but taught to do things right-handed. He really mixes them up. And I can't stress how important that is in his drumming style, you know.
Cover.
I don't see any Liverpool songs on here.
But he remakes Back Off Boogaloo, Don't Pass Me By, and Photograph because he can.
Wait. Oh, that's on the bonus one, right?
Well, I'm reading it's on the CD. I mean, well, you LP people might not have it.
Yeah, I have the CD too. That's only on the CD, those tracks.
Oh, okay.
Actually, let me find this because I like the version he does of I like these new versions.
Yeah, no, it works. It works. I mean,
and they're different. What's nice about them, they're different. He didn't just rehash it. So we're not doing thumbs up, thumbs down on this video, but
all of these albums are like, okay, you know, none of them are an embarrassment.
And you got, you know, a musician needs to put out music, so all the power to him, right? He's pulling out these things.
This one, he covers John Lennon's "Grow Old with Me" on this. This album is heavily auto-tuned. If you listen to this album, what else? "Money," the old song, Motown song. It's all right. Again, it's the same cover. You know,
And just lastly, I have a 12-inch disco of "Drowning in the Sea of Love" and a bootleg. Do you have this Ringo bootleg?
I do have that bootleg. Not with me, but yes, indeed.
It has Down and Out. It has a long version of 6 o'clock that's only on the cassette. We didn't talk about that. And on the Ringo album, 6 o'clock, there's a longer version that was only, I don't have my cassette anymore. I used to have that cassette.
Which is Paul McCartney's song, and it's got a lot more Paul vocals scatting on the end.
Minutes. Yeah. This has some stuff from Scouse's Mouse and everything as well. So bootleg, Ringo Starr bootleg. And what's my name?
Peace and love. Peace and love.
Anything else to close talking about Ringo?
Happy birthday, Ringo.
You know,
thank you. If you're watching this, Ringo's doing a YouTube concert on his birthday. Paul McCartney will be on it. Sheila E., Joe Walsh.
5 p.m. Pacific time, I think. Check your local listings.
Check your local listings.
But you're probably watching this after the fact because it's so friggin' long, and you didn't think you'd want to watch an hour plus on Ringo Starr. So
it's nice we got Ringo. He's in there. He's still performing. He's still recording. Nice to have him on.
Important. You know, he was the component that really made the Beatles, and we like to kid about, it's easy to kind of kid, but we love Ringo, and maybe Ringo will watch us sometime. It's another, you know, a bunch of goofy guys talking about Ringo Starr. We love you, Ringo. Do a country record. And get out of your comfort zone. Get someone like
Rick Rubin, T-Bone Burnett, anybody like that.
You know, even Daniel Lanois, except you get the extra kind of squirrely stuff. But T-Bone Burnett would put a good band together for you. So Mazzy loves you. Thank you, David. And peace and love. Peace and love. See you next time.